JoeSpeak podcast. I'm back again, and I've got a really good one. I say it all the time, and I mean it all the time. I really do. I'm not saying I ever am not telling the truth, but I got a really good one. And I think that when we have a good show, we have it for all different reasons, and they are unique to the individual. And so this one would be no different. When I was thinking about what we want to do and who the kinds of folks we'd want to talk to in our second series of shows that are going on here as we speak, this person came up, a public servant for a very, very long time who has done some exciting things. One of the nicest, in addition to being smart, in addition to being passionate and understanding what they wanted to accomplish. She's been in the state Senate for 8 years. She's now in a new venture that's going to help a whole lot of people understand what we have in the way of media in the Inland Empire. So I am so proud to introduce to some, maybe a few, I don't know, present to others, our former Senator Connie Leyva, who is here with us. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Joe. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is really great, and I got to thinking, I'm like, this would be a wonderful conversation to have since I saw, what you're doing now. I don't know what we were thinking when we didn't elect you for supervisor. We don't have to talk about that. But
things happen.
Yeah, for sure. And so, let's talk a little bit, because we really want to spend a lot of time talking about your role as executive director at KVCR TV/FM, which is the only public media in the Inland Empire.
That is correct.
And
the one and only.
And just got to its 60th birthday?
Yes.
Okay, so, we've got milestones there to talk about. Obviously, that's going to really, you being there is going to draw a lot of attention to it, and I think that that's wonderful. It's been in my universe a little bit, but I'm just so excited about the opportunity to give people some information. But what we're going to do, we're going to go forward a little bit. You've got a distinguished record of service over the years, but you're a regular, you believe that people help people and get help and those types of things. But you could be a up by your bootstraps kind of story if there was such a thing.
Yes, definitely.
You know what I mean? And so you work through school, you go to college, University of Redlands, go Bulldogs.
And go Bulldogs. Ouch tamale.
And you were working in the supermarket industry.
Yes.
Now, how long did you do that?
I worked in the stores for almost 10 years.
Really?
Started my senior year in high school.
Wow.
Met my favorite husband while I was working there.
Okay.
Alpha Beta 59 in Ontario.
Beta. You like Alpha Beta, and tell a friend.
Tell a friend, Joe. You
See,
remember.
I remember that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Some of my best work memories come from working at Alpha Beta.
Really?
My husband and I got married, and I was going to school. He was going to school. I was at Redlands. He was at University of Laverne.
Right.
We thought, while we were working and going to school, we should have a baby.
Right.
As I tell everyone, do it after you graduate from college. It's much easier. We ended up having twins, which was a big surprise.
Right.
And I didn't ever end up using my degree in communicative disorders.
Right. My wife's a speech therapist.
Oh, I love that. You know what? So I bet she is doing it for the reason I thought I wanted to do it.
Gotcha.
We tolerate so much in life,
Right.
but we don't tolerate if people cannot communicate effectively. And I always thought, if I could help people, make sure that they could speak and overcome any challenges they might have. Well, I ended up working in the labor movement, ended up working for UFCW Local 1428, the union that was my union.
Right.
And I'd like to say that I help people find their voice in a different way, making sure people had a voice on the job.
Yeah, fantastic. And so you go along, you're working in labor through your job, you become full-time labor.
Yes. So I started as a temporary employee in the benefits department.
Right.
Quickly realized I wanted to be a union rep. That's where the action was. And when a position opened, I wanted to apply. And at the time, the president told me I could not.
Really?
I said, well, why? He said, well, you're a woman. And I was so shocked. I said, you're a genius. I am a woman. But there were no female reps. And he said, and you're a mom.
Wow.
And I said, well, who do you think's working in all those grocery stores?
Right.
A bunch of women working moms.
Right.
So ultimately, I did become a rep. I loved it very much.
Right.
And then I went on. It's a very long story, but I'll give you the abbreviated version. The president passed away suddenly of a heart attack, and the executive board elected me to be the first woman to ever run UFCW Local 1428.
Wow.
And I loved it. I love workers. I love you started to say it. You alluded to it a little bit in the beginning.
Right.
I am just a regular person.
Right, yeah, sure.
I always tell people I'm a regular person who has had jobs that give me more responsibility, and that's all.
For sure.
So I did that, and concurrently I was the president of the California Labor Federation, which represents 2.1 million people in the state of California.
Wow.
First woman to do that, and I loved both of those jobs.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, I don't know if the guy that told you no was still around.
No, he died.
Okay, well, rest his soul. But
Yes,
for those
rest
of
his
you
soul.
that are still here, this is what happens when you tell Connie Leyva no, okay? So,
Be careful. I'm
So
just
how did
kidding.
the state senate thing happen? How did that come along?
It's a great question. So, working in the labor movement, we did a lot of work in politics because I always told my members, the only thing I'm going to talk to you about are people who are going to vote to do what we want them to do for you, which is make sure you have good wages, a good pension, and medical benefits.
Right.
So we had supported a lot of candidates over the years, and so I was very familiar with what it looked like to run a campaign, had walked and talked and knocked on many doors.
Right, sure.
And I got a call one day from the mayor of Pomona, Elliot Rothman, and he said, hey, Connie Leyva, I'm going to run for Senate. And I said, like the state Senate?
Right.
And he said, yes, and I need your support.
Yeah.
And I thought, dear God, this man cannot represent us. He is drunk or high at everything he comes to, and late.
This ain't happening. Right.
So I called the sitting senator, Norma Torres, Congresswoman Torres, and she said, would you consider running? I said, I don't know. I said, let me go home and talk to my favorite husband and see what he thinks about me living in Sacramento 4 days a week.
Right.
So he was awesome. He is always my biggest fan and my biggest champion. And so I decided to run and was lucky enough to win. People told me I couldn't win because I was, they said, you're too progressive for this area. You cannot run as a labor leader.
Right.
And I said, well, that's all I got.
Right.
I said, so if it doesn't work, it wasn't meant to be.
Right.
But the big lesson for me, Joe, was that talking to people, that's all you got to do is you got to talk to people, explain to them what you believe in, that you believe in them and what you want to try and do for them. And it didn't matter that I was a labor leader. It didn't matter. I'm a Democrat, a proud Democrat, but I got a lot of crossover Republican votes because people should vote for the person, not the party.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was lucky enough to win, and I guess kind of the rest is history.
So, 8 years is a blur.
It's a blur.
Fortunately, my service got me connected with your anti-racism task force.
Yes.
Great folks in your office that I've known for a long time, like Michael Townsend and those guys. And so tell us about what you would say the things that you're the most proud of from those 8 years. And if there's a piece of unfinished business out there just because we haven't gotten that far yet, or just because, we didn't get that done, or, what are some of your reflections that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, let me thank you for being a part of my racism task force.
Sure.
Your voice was excellent. I learned so much from you and others on the task force. And my hope is that people will do similar things to we did. We all just would come together, and for people who don't know, we just come together and talk about issues, talk about things that were working and not working. And I think that's what we need to do more in society. But as far as what I'm most proud of, it's a really long list, so I'm going to make it short. We worked hard on Team Leyva. And because I felt very passionate that, my God, 1 million people I represent, they elected me, and I needed to do a good job every day. I think we had 53 bills signed into law by the governor. One that I'm most proud of is the bill SB 813, which eliminated the statutes of limitations on rape. It used to just be an arbitrary 10 years. And what we know is that, most women, it affects men too, but mostly this is a women's issue. Sometimes you're very young and you don't feel that you can come forward until you're a little older. So having that arbitrary 10 years wasn't helpful. I like to tell this story, one, because I love the bill, but also because Governor Brown at the time said, well, how about if we just make it 20 years? And I said, no. I said, we'll take the veto. And I thought, you know what? Let him tell women in California that he doesn't care. He ended up signing it into law. So I'm really proud of that bill. And there's a lot of other women's issue bills that I worked on, making sure that rape kits are tested within 120 days. There's now a rape portal. A rape kit portal. And I remember one survivor telling me, thank goodness, now I don't have to call that disinterested detective anymore to see what's happening with my rape kit.
Wow.
Just empowering survivors. And I didn't know I was such an environmentalist until I was elected. Growing up here in Southern California in the 70s, I remember we couldn't see the mountains. I remember smog days, and then things got a little bit better. And then they got worse again. And what I learned quickly is that we can see the mountains, but the particulates have gotten smaller. So even though it looks like a beautiful day, the air quality is still bad. Senate District 20, it's not my district anymore. We have more warehouses than any place else in the country, just in one Senate district. It's not the warehouses that pollute, as we know. It's the trucks going in and out. So we did SB 210 to require big rigs to have to do a smog check. I remember when I found out that we all do smog checks, but big rigs didn't. It took us 3 years to get there. And I think all of my best bills took about 3 years. And I remember when we got the California trucking industry to an enthusiastic neutral, I said, okay, we have arrived. And then we did SB 1000, which requires every city in the state of California to do an environmental justice plan when they do their general plan every 10 years. So the hope there is that so many county boards just continue to rubber stamp warehouses. They don't care if they're by schools. They don't care if they're in people's backyard. If we're going to be known for warehouses, if we're going to have warehouses, let's at least be smart about it. Let's not ruin people's lives. So those are a couple. I could go on forever, but I don't want to bore you or your listeners. And unfinished business. I think there's still work to do on equity. As the chair of Senate Education, I loved working on equity issues, especially in education and for people of color. We know that it happens and we talk about it, but are we doing enough about it? SB 300, I hope I'm not forgetting it, but it got absorbed into the budget. And that's to make sure that all high school students have access to A through G credits. We found that 51% of students, all in places where the students were of color, did not have access. And people were like, oh, what does that mean? Well, it means that then you cannot go to a CSU or UC. So even we can't limit our students. We can't limit our future leaders. So I think there's still a lot more work to do in equity. I will miss the restitution that it's going to be worked on. That I know it's going to be worked on this session. But at the end of the day, I feel like I did my part to make California better, and I'm excited to be home more. To be honest.
So you're coming back home, and tell me how the call comes about related to KVCR, because this really seems to be, this is not, if you think about it, I think that this is a natural evolution of your service. This isn't a detour. This isn't a 180. This is the very much the next thing. So tell us how that came about.
So, and I agree with you 100%. So, everything happens for a reason. As we talked just a bit about, I ran for supervisor, thinking, you know what, there's still work to be done, a lot of work to be done at the county supervisor level in San Bernardino County. And I lose. And it's like, well, okay. And I remember the night of the election, I told my husband, we left it all on the field. We knocked on like 16,000 doors. But then when people didn't show up to vote, and if people don't vote, that's what happens. But I really do believe things happen for a reason. So I get a call from my now boss saying, would you consider applying for this? I actually had gotten that call when I was running for supervisor and said, no, I'm really committed to running for supervisor. Well, he was probably the happiest person when I lost.
Hey, sorry you lost. By the way.
The conversation went something like that. And I said, I I've been on radio and I've been on television, but I don't come from that industry. Are you sure I'm the person that you want?
Right.
And he said, you have what we want, which is community service.
Right.
And we want someone to engage the community. I said, well, that I can do.
You can do that.
And I will love doing it. So I applied and went through the whole process and was lucky enough to get selected.
Right.
Had to wait until my Senate term ended. So I just started December 5th. So this is week 3.
Right. Wow. How about that? So I think that, and you have to educate us, give us the one-on-one on KVCR, because I think it's a super well-kept secret that folks just don't know about.
Joe, I could not agree with you more. And that's what I keep saying. I keep telling people this is the gem of the Inland Empire.
Right, yeah.
So what I'm excited about is KVCR is PBS, it's NPR, but we're also something called FNX, First Nations Experience.
Yeah.
We are the only television station in the country that does anything about our Native Americans and covers them and talks about their experiences and what they bring to the table, so to speak, and how they're such a big part of our community. But I think what I love about PBS, when my girls were very little and we were living in Colton and we didn't have any money and there was no such thing, I don't think there was such thing as DirecTV or cable way back in the day. And we used to watch Sesame Street and we used to watch PBS. And I remember when they would do their little drives for money, we were broke, we didn't have any money, and I would write a check for $25 because I was so appreciative that my kids had something to watch. And here we are. That was probably 28 years ago because our girls are 30. And here now I get to try and help usher in the next generation, if you will. And the team at KVCR is really fantastic. These are folks that have been doing this for a very long time, absolutely love KVCR. And so my job is to go in there, learn from them, bring what I think I have to the table, and then get out there and educate the community about this wonderful public service that we have. Right
now,
here in the Inland Empire.
Are they part of, there's a connection with San Bernardino, the San Bernardino
Valley College
system, right?
Yes. Okay. So we are on Valley College's campus.
Gotcha.
If you go up Mount Vernon and turn right on Grant, you will see KVCR right there on the corner, and the college is just north of us. So one of the things that I will be working on is making sure we have more internships and interns because they can take all of those classes at Valley College and then come to us and get the theoretical and the book knowledge, and then come to us for the hands-on. We have some amazing interns that I've met just in my couple weeks there, and my hope is to grow it, and that is going to come through raising money. We are public television and radio, so we have to raise all of our own money, and that's fine. When I interviewed for the job, I said, I know how to raise money, so I could do that. Just give me a number. The number is big, but I will figure it out. And then we can pay our interns, because, I think it's very different now than years ago. Young people could come in and they didn't have to work and they could intern for free. That's just too much to ask of people today. Things are so expensive. Even college, going to Valley College itself might not be expensive, the tuition and whatnot, but transportation there, finding housing, eating. It's just, it's very different than, many years ago when I was in school. So we'll be working a lot on that.
Now, on the television station, say, what kind of programming is there? Are there things that are area specific?
Yes, so great question. I actually brought the schedule here with me for the radio because I don't have it all memorized. But I will tell you, you should all tune in early in the morning to Morning Edition. And this is great if you're driving to work or whatnot, or you're getting ready in the morning. And this is where we tell you what's happening in the Inland Empire and even around the world, something that may have happened the night before or whatnot. So we have 2 broadcasters that do that. Rick and Jessica is doing that as well. And then there's a show called Lifestyles with Lillian Vasquez. And that's where she interviews either entities or people. And that's actually, that's on the radio and I believe TV. And she interviews different people in the Inland Empire and kind of gives people a flavor of what's going on. This Friday, I tuned into Science Friday, and that was great. The great thing about public radio and television, every time you tune in, you're going to learn something. So I kind kind of like to say, learn with us, your lifestyle with us, and love KVCR.
Right. That's fantastic. So is it on 24 hours a day?
Yes, 24 hours a day. So if you wake up and you cannot sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, turn on Channel 24, and we will be airing something of interest for you.
Right. And so I see that, of course, the raising money is going to be the how. It's going to help you get some things done.
Yes.
Tell us what you know about the current state of things there, and what it's doing versus what it wants to do. Because I'm certain when it got in contact with you, they say, okay, we want to raise money, but here's the vision that we have in terms of where we think we'd like to go, and drawing, of course, more attention to what we do. But kind of what's the playing field in terms of what they're trying to do there?
So what we really want to do, I just, again, have to give credit for all the folks who've been there for a very long time, doing a great job. And every single person who works at KVCR just has a passion for what they do.
Right.
And they love what they do. So I see my job is making sure people in the community have that same passion, and making sure we are actually highlighting people in the Inland Empire. As someone said to me, it was great to watch the mayor's race in LA on election night. We had a really big mayor's race unfolding in San Bernardino. So that will be part of my vision, is to make sure that we are highlighting things that are unique to the Inland Empire, happening in the Inland Empire. We are our own, as you and I talked before we started, Joe, our own metropolitan area.
That's right.
KVCR, PBS, NPR, we cover about 1.4 million listeners in San Bernardino County and Riverside County. That's the bulk. Our reach is a little bit further, both directions, a little bit into LA County, but that's really where the bulk of our folks are. So what I think about is, how do I get people excited to tune in and listen to what we're talking about? And part of that will be just, I'm going to grab one of our cameramen, probably Tim, one day and say, Tim, let's hit the streets and just ask people if they know about KVCR. If they do, what do you love? If you don't, well, let me tell you about it. So that's a little bit of the vision.
Right. So this lends to this larger issue that I always see, and this is part of one of the things that we really want to do, even in our practice, is to draw attention to the Inland Empire and the things that are going on in the Inland Empire. We've kind of got our own thing here, but I have always thought, and maybe this comes back to even your experience on the state Senate, that the Inland Empire is often left behind from a resource standpoint. And, how do we deal with that? It's like, what do you mean we just have one media station? Now it's special, it's fantastic. It's been around for 60 years. But doggone it, why is there just one? And most of us that are here don't know about it. It's so many areas, education, the courts. I've got a lawsuit related to what's going on in the courts and the funding and that kind of thing. It's like, in so many ways, it's like the Inland Empire is kind of like the state stepchild. You know what I mean? Because we don't have an ocean on our, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But how do we deal with that?
So you're right, we don't have an ocean, but I tell people, we have these beautiful mountains, and we have a beautiful desert, and most importantly, we have beautiful people. We have amazing people, hardworking people that make up the Inland Empire. I do think things are changing. I feel like when I got elected, when Majority Leader Eloise Gomez-Reyes got elected, we started electing people who are going to vote in a way that helps the people of the Inland Empire. And to bring resources. She and I would collaborate on, you get money from the Senate, you get asks over here, you get asks over in the Assembly. And so we would kind of coordinate, okay, what are you going to ask for? What are you going to ask for? So that we can maximize those dollars and get the most for the Inland Empire. But I think, to your point about, I think it's two things. One, I think we still don't, people look at us and they see us as the warehouse hub. And you know what? That's fine. But then we have to stand up and say, okay, if we're going to be the warehouse hub in the Inland Empire, these need to be sustainable jobs. These need to be jobs that pay a living wage, that have benefits, that have a pension, so that it's not looked at as a negative thing. It's looked at as a positive thing. And then I also just think we need to be louder. I think that, one of the things when I didn't run for my last term, one of the things that I worried about and still worry about is I feel like I was a big voice in Sacramento. Sure. And I hope that void will be filled by other big voices who know. I mean, this is where I lived. When I ran for office, I told my husband, I said, these are my people. Right. Because even though I was born in Kansas, because my dad was in the service, we moved to Pomona when I was 18 months old, lived in Chino. My husband and I bought our first house in Colton, lived there for 10 years, and moved back to Chino. And I said, I think I care so much about this area because these are my people. This is where I've lived. So I just hope that others will feel the same and be that loud voice in Sacramento.
Related to that, and give me two-part question. The second part is going to be, how can your work with the station as executive director kind of help do this? But I think that there is a unique role that the Inland Empire plays in terms of the health and the well-being of the state of California and of the country.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? How do we, what is that role, and how can it evolve and improve and be recognized? And then how does the media piece connect to that?
Great question. So I think KVCR is, as we said at the top of the show, is a hidden gem of the Inland Empire. So I see first the work that we need to do is to make sure people know about us, know what we do. My second day on the job, we had Inland Action in, and these are business owners, people in the community, and they came in and got to see what we do. We have a state-of-the-art studio. We have a state-of-the-art television and radio station, so they could come in and really see what we do. And we rent that space out. If you want to make a video, we can help you produce that video. If you want to have us air something, we can, you can pay to have things aired. So I think part of it is most of the people who came, there were about 40 folks from Inland Action who joined us. They didn't even know that KVCR was there.
Right under their nose.
Right under their nose. So I see that as part of my job, is making sure people know we're here, know the resource we provide, get people excited to be a part, and then, change things a little bit. And it all takes money, right? Producing shows and whatnot. So the more money we raise, the more we can highlight and feature different organizations in the Inland Empire and connect people to resources. I think that's so incredibly important. People don't always know what's out there to help them. And you and I were talking a little bit about poor people. They're so busy putting a roof over their head, food on the table, they don't know. But maybe when they're driving to work, if KVCR tells them something, at the radio station 91.9, for those who don't know.
91.9.
91.9, tune in. You're driving and you hear something and realize, my God, that's a resource I need or I can use. I see that as part of our vision, part of our mission.
Right. So talk a little bit about young people and the role of young people and their importance. So, KVCR is located on a college campus, right? So you got a lot of exposure to the young folks. Let's talk about it in terms of their involvement and one of the things that I noticed about my daughter, I was planting my seeds. I was playing Schoolhouse Rock when she was little.
Yeah, I love it.
She liked a couple of the songs or whatever.
Yes.
So years later, she was in 8th grade, and I escort the 8th grade class to Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's awesome.
We set up a meeting with Pete Aguilar, our friend,
great.
And we walk up the stairs and at the Capitol, and the sun came out. The sky opened up, the sun came out.
Wow.
And she looks at me, she goes, "This is I'm Just a Bill."
Oh,
right?
Good job,
and so
Dad.
the two things, I used to have to initiate those political conversations. And between, frankly, the Trump campaign and then my city council campaign, because on purpose we just kind of waited until I was older so that maybe she could participate.
That's right.
And how she felt about it, that's really what made her want to report on politics. And eventually I think she'll probably get back to national media. She's going to do local and get her chops or whatever.
That's
else.
awesome.
But talk about this energy that you get. I think one of the things that's amazing, when I would go, I was a Democratic delegate, and there's this great energy. When they asked me if I wanted to renew, I said, it's time for somebody else.
Right.
Folks,
yes.
That have this energy and that need to have this close connection to politics, because I think that they have a new expectation because of some of the things that they've seen. And it's very much time to kind of pass the mantle and allow them to do their thing. I see this bridge between what you've always done and how important and how central young people are to that. And when it comes to media, it's so important to get stories out, because a big part of the problem, I think, is that certain stories don't get to be told.
That's exactly right.
How do you think about connecting the dots, and can you continuing to use that same energy? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have always told you, you were the first time I got involved in politics, you're the first person I voted for. That, that kind of energy.
Yes.
Talk about how you really continue to connect to that in this venture.
Yes. You know what, Joe, our young people are our future leaders. And I think that we do ourselves and them a disservice when we don't listen to them. You know, I remember I was joining a Democratic club a number of years ago, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Connie, we're so excited to have you. We need young people." I said, "I'm 50 years old. I am not young." And so we need young people who are like 18, who are 20. Right. I spoke to a young man earlier this year when I was at a Relay for Life in Chino, and he was 20 years old, and he goes, "Connie, I'm thinking about running for city council." I said, "Do it, do it." And you know, they need that affirmation from us. They need us to encourage them. But having 30-year-old daughters myself, I think sometimes people look at young people and they're like, "Oh, they're too young, they're too young." Right. No, they're a different voice. Right. And we need to hear that voice, because what was important to me when I was 30 is different than what is important to my 30-year-old daughters right now. And I think a lot of it's about work, right? And we look at how work has changed since the pandemic. Remote work versus always being, at the office. So we have to listen to our young people, and we won't keep them engaged if we don't take them seriously and we don't listen to them. So that's our job as the older generation, reaching back and pulling up the new and younger generation. And we can do it. It just takes a little work, and sometimes you have to say, "Oh, that's an interesting idea," and you might have to sleep on it. But I think it's just so important to listen to them.
I talk to my daughter all the time about this, and we have fun about, we'll go somewhere. I finally made it to the Carter Center. Never been to the Carter Center. I've been to Atlanta a million times. So we were talking about just the politics in the 70s in the South.
Oh,
and
yeah.
How Jimmy Carter was a little unlikely that way, and some comparisons to Bill Clinton, and just different aspects that we talk about and that we connect with. I imagine that when you were done at the state Senate, for all that you'd accomplished and as much as you loved it and enjoyed it and embraced it, you probably exhaled a bit.
I did. It's, when you represent a million people as a state senator, you never feel like you're doing enough. Right. I had an amazing team around me, my district team. We were all over the Inland Empire in Senate District 20. My team in Sacramento, my team with the Education Committee. Everybody was so committed. But I always ask people, "What's your time?" Right. And when I say that, I mean, what's your time that you wake up every morning and think, excuse my language, "Oh shit, did I do enough?" And mine is 3 a.m. Right. I wake up at 3 a.m. and think, "Oh my God, did I do everything?" Right, and then when I decided not to run again, we would drive by things and I'm like, "Oh my God, honey, that's not my problem anymore." Right, you feel like you don't have to solve every problem. So that was definitely a big exhale. And then cleaning out my apartment that I lived in for 8 years in Sacramento, and knowing that I'm going to be home in Chino every night is really awesome.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It is. It is. But I don't regret one bit of it and feel honored that I got to serve.
Talk about some of the young leaders that you're excited about.
Some of the young leaders that I'm excited about. We have a young man in the assembly, Alex Lee. He's from San Francisco. He was the youngest person elected. Right. And he's great. He just brings a really good energy. Here locally, some of the younger folks, they didn't get elected, but I encourage them to try again. Right. Because it's about getting your name out there. Sure. and talking to folks. And sometimes this would be my only critique of our young people. They want to do everything on social media.
Right, yeah,
and
sure.
so I tell them, I go, you know what you got to do? You got to knock on the doors. You got to look people in the eye and tell them what you're about.
Retail politics.
Retail politics. And honestly, it's the funnest part because you learn so much about your neighborhood, other neighborhoods. But I think that that our young people encourage it. And then a lot of them went through the pandemic where we were home for a couple of years. So encourage them to get out there and talk to people. But they just excite me because sometimes you get a little jaded. Yeah, sure. I was elected in 2014. Right. Donald Trump was elected in 2016, and it was a stark difference in how things operated, even in Sacramento. People just became so much more negative, and people became mean, and it can get you down. But then you talk to our young people, and they're always so hopeful. Oh, no, but we can do this, and we can do that. And so our young people give us hope for the future.
Right. So finally, I'll ask you, and God, this has been fun.
It's been great. Thank you for letting me be here.
Oh, man. So you look down the road in terms of your service as executive director. What would constitute success for you, at least as you define it now? And maybe it's a moving target. I won't hold you to it. I won't say 5 years from now, Connie, now you told me this. Now you're talking about something else.
Yes. You could kind of hold me to it. That's okay. Success for me would be increasing viewership, increasing listenership, and having so much more community engagement. And obviously, one of my big tasks is making sure that we are self-sustaining, so we have the money to move forward. And being able to hire more interns, being able to hire more. You know what my dream is to have people, reporters on the street, to have folks on the street talking to people in the Inland Empire, bringing those stories back. That all takes money, it takes staff. So that's kind of my dream, but I think we can get there. We have a great team. We're going to add more folks to it, and pretty soon everybody's going to be listening to and talking about KVCR.
Well, that's good stuff. Well, Connie Leyva, I am so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
I was saying on the way over here today, now I'm going to call her Senator Leyva.
No.
I'll ask her which to do, and then you come in and introduce, hi guys, I'm Connie. Like, okay, there that went.
Yes.
So
I'm just Connie.
Well, it's great when somebody, when you meet people and you remind us of what we all want to be, which is what you are, which is regular and extraordinary at the same time.
Oh, thank you. That's
I appreciate you. Thank you for your service, your continued service, and I'm looking forward to, you let the morning show know if they need somebody to come in and talk on legal issues.
I'm their
guy. You know what I mean?
Appreciate
I'm local.
That. All right, you are local. I know where to find you, Joe.
But so thank you so much for interviewing with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, and keep up the good work.
I shall. I don't know about the good work. I just do what my wife tells me and stay out of the way.
Well, that's just smart right there.
There's certainly some smart work going on here.
Yes.
So, JoeSpeak podcast. Thanks again. You can catch us on all platforms. Let folks know we are doing some wonderful, wonderful shows, talking to great folks, and doing things that are super important. So, like always, you take your time leaving, but you hurry back. Talk to you soon. Thanks.